medicated school, but people, like I said, knew I was involved in wrestling. So, like in PE or something, if we had like a free moment, some people would like try to test me and be like, "Well, why don't you wrestle me?" And we would like scuffle around, not like no, fists were thrown or anything like that, but they would try to grapple me or whatever. And one guy almost choked me out, actually.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but I'm proud to say I never tapped out. I
Oh,
don't think.
nice.
I was
Right the
just
fuck
like,
on,
yeah,
bro.
go ahead, put your 200 pounds on me while you're, not applying a sleeper hold properly. While you're putting the arm across the windpipe instead of the jugular, whatever.
Shit.
And then eventually the PE teacher's just like, all right, get off him. And, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So, do you believe that the anti-bullying thing is a step in the right direction, or does it hinder the growth of a person?
I'm totally anti-bullying. Bullies should be put in their proper place, and that proper place is not anywhere near, other kids. Well, I don't want to say it should be segregated from other kids. I should maybe rephrase that. I'm very much anti-bullying. I don't think bullying is good for kids. I think it's very bad for kids. Too many kids have ended up killing themselves or, getting their dads like AK and taking out of school because, of bullying.
I think can I throw my 2 cents in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll share a little story with you real quick. I got picked on and bullied and beat up and jumped from the time I was 7 till the time I was 12 by the same people and shit, right? So when I turned 12, I was living with my dad. I came home. I got beat up before I came home, and my father figured out that I didn't know how to fight, so he sent me to a boxing gym and showed me how to fight. And the next time one of those kids picked on me, I whipped his ass. And then another kid, and I actually got all of them. I ended up fighting all of them, not all at once, one at a time. And they never fucked with me again after that. That was the end of me being fucked with. Now, I don't know if that's a rare case or not, but I believe that people should be taught self-defense. That way it goes around that everybody knows self-defense. Like it should be taught in school. That's just what I believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have no problem with kids learning how to defend themselves properly. I just have an issue with the people who say like, "Oh, a kid getting bullied, that's good for him. He learns stuff about life growing up." I learned that not to trust people on the handful of occasions I was bullied, in school particularly, and then I was bullied by like the wrestlers for a number of years.
Are you serious?
Some cases worse than others. Yeah, no. Most of the time, the bullying from the wrestlers was like a big brother, little brother type of teasing, which I didn't mind as much.
Dude,
there were
some of these
wrestlers
guys are
who
dicks,
I
bro.
still have issues with to this day, and I couldn't physically take them out. I'm not a big guy. So self-defense wouldn't have helped me there. I just think, that there should be, consequences for bullying, particularly like that online bullying stuff. I mean, that's just. Those are just people hiding behind the mask of
Oh yeah, they're the big pussies, dude. The people that do the bullying are the biggest pussies because they don't have the what do you call it? They don't have the balls to do it to the kid's face. They're afraid. They're just afraid of a confrontation than the other kid is. I think you're wrong about it. If you knew self-defense, I don't think you would have got bullied. Self-defense brings you confidence. It gives you confidence in your ability to move certain movements and to perform certain things that need to be done to take somebody out if need be. So I guarantee if you would have taken some kind of self-defense class, you wouldn't have had to worry about shit from the wrestlers. Because in the back of your mind, you're like, fuck, I could kill this guy. Yeah, that's just my take on it, man. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in the whole situation.
Yeah, but I never would have wanted to shoot with any of the guys. I was never the biggest guy. There was one time I got into a shoot fight with anybody involved in wrestling, and I'm going to call this guy out because he later pussed out about it a couple years later. So one day, during one of the trainings, they were doing some kind of chain wrestling, shoot fighting type of stuff. And various guys would call each other out, and usually it would end with either some type of draw or whatever. It was fine. It was the guys being the guys, but no one was going to call on me because everybody outweighed me by 100 pounds at that point. But who had started wrestling training school that very week? Do you remember a guy by the name of Chad the Bad?
Oh, God, yeah, Chad. He's still a friend of mine. Oh, God.
Chad the Bad ended up calling me out, in the middle of all of this. And I was just like, no, I don't want to do it, man. And he as I recall, he called me basically every name in the book. I'm like, fine, I'll get in the ring. I got in the ring, and I actually kind of choked him out.
He listens to this show. Chad, you're a dick, dude.
And here's the thing: I found out a couple years later that he was just like that he was trying to put, pass it off like, oh yeah, no, I totally let me win that fight. I'm just like, why would you let me win that fight? Like,
jeez.
There was no coming back from that with the wrestlers after that.
Right.
If I could kick the lowest man on the IZW totem pole, if I could choke you out, why would you let me win?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, why would you purposely embarrass yourself?
That was the thing.
That's fucking funny as shit.
Yeah, and I should say I never had any issues with him besides that. He just had called me out one day. He pushed it too far. I got in the ring. I think the move that I ended up getting on him just because he had thrown a shot at me and I ducked underneath it, so I got him into a Tasmanian.
Get the fuck out of here! Really?
Yeah, and then laid back, put the legs around him, got him away from the rope, so there was really no getting out of it.
Nice.
And he, tapped out. To his credit, after about 30 seconds, but he did.
He tried to fight as hard as he could, huh?
He did. And I give him full credit for that and everything. It's just,
You're such a gentleman.
It was the fact that a couple years later that I heard he's just like, oh, I let him win. I'm just like, no, there's no reason for him to let me win. And he was genuinely struggling in that thing. So, yeah.
All right. What was your favorite subject in high school and college?
I've always been a big history guy. I like learning about, events of history, mostly for trivia purposes. I freely admit. I like learning the weird stories behind the stories of stuff beyond just, in 1492, Columbus sailed. Well, and then I learned all the stuff that, the Vikings actually came over first.
Right.
And, hey, there was indigenous people here in the first place, so did we really discover anything? No. We didn't. But I like learning the whole history behind things. And eventually that rolled into film history. I loved learning the weird, nuanced stories behind how certain films got made, because there's some real wild, wacky stories, especially in exploitation films, which is kind of one of my main fields of study of filmmaking. Those are kind of the B-movie-esque type of movies that tended to exploit, like sex or violence, and usually were independent and, often are viewed as like these cheesy old films and everything. And I learned a lot about those kinds of films throughout my particularly college life and particularly post-grad college life.
Huh. No shit. Right on.
Yeah.
Let's get into wrestling now. Okay, we already talked a lot about it, but we gotta get into it. Were you a wrestling fan as a kid?
From about the time I was maybe like 10 or so, I was a wrestling fan. I wasn't, as a really young kid growing up, but eventually I got into it. I still remember the first tape I ever rented from a video store, and it's a terrible, most people, this would be the first and last wrestling video that they would ever get, but it was WWF's Bloopers, Bleeps, and Body Slams.
Oh, God.
If you ever have a chance to, it was hosted by Hillbilly Jim, to give you an idea of how bad it was.
Oh, Jesus
Three
Christ.
of the matches on that tape, if I remember, ended in DQ or count out. It was not a great compilation, but I was fascinated by some of the characters that I saw on these shows. Yokozuna, Bret Hart, Tatanka, and everything. This was still new generation stuff. Just as I got into it just as the Attitude Era was really kicking off. I remember the first episode of Superstars that I had watched live was discussing the Bret Hart Patriot match. If you recall that very brief feud that occurred. So that I was a fan from about that time, and I've been a fan ever since.
Oh, right on. All right. Who's your favorite wrestler?
I mean, that would change on fairly often basis. I was my initial favorite was Bret Hart. I was a huge fan of his growing up. I love Stone Cold Steve Austin. I remember I actually got in trouble one day for wearing an Austin 316 shirt.
What?
Because literally some Christian kid was saying, it's just like, if I can't wear my John 316 shirt, he should be able to wear his Austin 316 shirt. And I'm just like, really, guy? Really?
It's not even remotely the same thing.
It's not. I didn't end up wearing it after that to school. I just wore it everywhere else. So there were a lot of guys that I've been fans of over the years. I'll have weird fan things where I like a lot of the undercard guys, and not just like the big guys up top. If somebody can basically entertain me and make me laugh, I'll usually like them.
But I'm a Barry Horowitz fan.
Barry Horowitz, got to do the old pat on the back type of thing, Barry Horriblewitz, as Sonny used to call him.
I used to watch him lose so much. When he finally won, I popped so hard.
And that was a great way to go.
Seriously.
It was a great way to win. Do you remember what his entrance music was?
Yeah, it was the honey, yeah.
Yeah, it was Thomas Aguila.
Yeah.
I thought that was so silly, but it was so
awesome.
great. It worked well for his character.
Yes, absolutely.
Barry Horowitz was interesting. I never get a chance to interview C.C. Starr on one of these shows. Ask him about Barry Horowitz. I understand he's got a story about him.
Cool. Excuse me. Who got you into the business?
Well, like I said, I started working the IZW shows as a ring announcer for the school shows, which really weren't even officially shows. They were just like at the end of training each night. They would simulate 3 matches, and that would be kind of how it went. And usually, the only people who showed up to those really early school shows were myself and then the guys who were running the merch table at the time, who eventually disappeared and I never saw again. But Navajo Warrior is the guy who really got me into the business. I asked him if I could, do the ring announcing, and Steve Islos, Navajo Warrior, to his credit, he was just like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a chance to go ahead and do it. And, he took a chance on me, and I appreciate that very much. C.C. Starr also really instrumental in kind of getting me into everything. He took gave me a lot of advice early on.
Man, you put him over something fierce, don't you?
C.C. was a good friend of mine. Still is, even though I've kind of lost track of him over the years.
He came and visited me in the hospital. I didn't expect that.
Did he?
He did, yeah. Yeah, he came and visited me in the hospital, dude. He was right down the street, and he came up and hung out with me for a little bit.
He's a good guy, yeah.
All right, so you trained at the ICW school. Was being a manager your goal?
When I was younger, I thought I'd be a wrestler. I never thought I'd be, a big guy. I remember one year, the year before I was 17 going on 18. At my school, they offered a weight training class as one of my electives, and so I took weight training that year, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to bulk up and,